event in our lives that kind of shaped kind of who we are. Lots of different things like that. You're smiling. You don't think the Beatles are... I can't imagine what it is today. Britney Spears or I don't know. So we did an interesting... maybe it's Lady Gaga. I don't know. We created an interesting activity. We created a timeline from 1945 through 2008. We began this journey in 2008. And we put a group of 20 people together that crossed all three generations. And we kind of divided this timeline with political, social, cultural, technology kinds of divisions. And each one of them had a color-coded sticky note, and we basically put their birth date, not their birth date, but the birth year, so we kind of knew what generation they were in, and kind of asked them to define some things that they remember that kind of shaped their lives and place them on this timeline. You can kind of see back here some of all different color-coded things. And then we kind of took a digital picture of that so that we could study it and manipulate it and try to understand what all that was telling us. And it kind of looks like this. So this is the baby boomer experience. And those of you that are baby boomers can kind of relate to that. But when you look at those images compared to the others, I'm going to ask you to try to remember kind of what you see here, and I'm going to ask you what you think you see differently. So this is what was depicted from the baby boomers that participated in the study. Here's the Gen X experience. So what do you see differently there all of a sudden from the previous slide that really wasn't there? Yeah, see all the technology things now that have sprung up. Some of these pop culture kinds of things that have sprung up. So now I'm going to show you the Gen Y. Any significant things that you see as we evolve from the baby boomer era to the Gen Y? Significant changes. We do allow audience participation in this workshop. It's not all lecture. One of the things, and I guess I'll have to answer that question because nobody wants to step forward, but one of the things you notice here, number one, technology is very, very relevant and apparent. Number two, many of the things we saw with Gen Y were more global, from a global perspective. If you saw that first baby boomer, if I went back there, you notice everything was more local and more U.S. oriented. So the events that were shaping their lives were more centralized around the U.S. and their local principalities. Whereas here, because of technology, the internet, all those kinds of things, Gen Ys are more globally focused, just by the nature of being connected through the internet with people thousands of miles away. And so that's a significant thing that we found. In fact, our children today have grown up, even in school, in more diverse environments that some of us in the baby boomers did. Their classes are more diverse. Their focus is more globally focused. And because of the technology that's available, there's really no boundaries anymore. They can take a trip to France via the internet. They can talk to people in Germany via Facebook. They can have these shared experiences through technology that make them more globally oriented. The other thing that we found was as an effect of this is they're more socially minded. They not only are more socially minded, but they actually want to do something about it. There's a lot of us that say, yeah, I think recycling is good, and I think thinking about the environment is good, but we don't really do much about it. This is a very active group that really will step out, take a risk, and say, I need to really do my part in creating an environmentally sound country and picking up social causes of injustice and things of that nature. Gen Y is tech savvy. Technology is like oxygen to this group. And many of you that have children in this generation know that from the very youngest ages, technology, it's embedded in their lives. Where somebody like me, I use it, I like it, but it's a tool to get somewhere. It's not part of my life. It's not embedded into me. There's also some brain studies that are being done that this technology is changing the brains of these young individuals. You know, you're walking around with your smartphone, and the cognitive kinds of things that are happening are actually changing the way the brain actually functions because of the immersion that they have into that technology. They're easily bored. That's why we talk a lot about in higher education about active learning, because you take one of these students that are active, you know, from the very early stage, they're gaming, there's all these visual images that are coming upon them, they're socially connected with their friends and the environment, and then you put them in a classroom, row by column, they sit and listen, and the instructor talks at them. It's just, they just can't stand it, they get bored. And then there's negative things that this, you know, this idea that I can multitask and all this becomes a negative kind of connotation. So we need to understand how, even in the workplace, how these individuals work, what's important to them, and to be sensitive and empathetic sometimes to some of the things, because to us, you know, and the interesting thing about it is a lot of the leadership of these companies are baby boomers. So there's a huge, you know, there's a huge tension between that of what's expected and the perception I have of what's going on. So you really have to understand what that is. And then this whole idea of instant gratification, it's all born out of, you know, they've been patted on the back by their teachers, they've been lauded by their parents, you know, they've had this network of people around them that really lifted them up and supported them. They expect that in the workplace as well. Lots of feedback. How am I doing? What do I need to do to improve? Lots of mentoring is very important to this group. They're very collaborative and creative, but they also want that individual recognition. So I love the idea I can work in a group and collaborate and achieve something as a group, but I still want to get a little bit of recognition that I've contributed to this project. And then this whole idea of using social networking as a way to create and be innovative is very important. And again, it's embedded in their lives. It's a natural part of who they are. We talked about this overprotected and this nurturing side that parents of Gen Y have done. Great example. We had an individual, and this is a true story, that interviewed with our company, and his mother came with him on the interview. And it was amazing. You know, you could tell she probably helped him write the resume, but she was there every step of the way. I heard another story of a mother when she sent her. No, actually, I didn't want to. Another story of a mother who sent her first child off to college and actually spent the first week with her in her dorm room to get her settled in. And then I think finally the other students chased her out. I don't know if her daughter did it or not. But these are kind of some of the weird, wacky stories, maybe more extreme, of this kind of overprotection and enabling this generation. When we talk about the risk-taking and this whole idea of bringing up a social cause, they're not afraid to step out of their comfort zone to stand up for something that's really important to them and meaningful. They want to lead, but they also want to do work that's meaningful and impactful. And I'll give you a great example. My 26-year-old son went to work for a energy company, and he was in charge of creating online training programs for their people that traded energy, you know, to keep within regulations. It was a project-based kind of work. And he would come home, you know, and I'd see him, he'd say, you know, I hate my job. I'm not doing anything that's important. I'm just doing this online. I don't feel like it's meaningful work. He was making good money. He was moving up, you know, getting promotions. He worked there for 3 years. About 4 weeks ago, he left that company for a job. Benefits were 3/4 of what he had with this company. The salary was half of what he's doing. What do you think he's doing today? He's working with autistic children in a little school, making about $12 an hour, half of what he did, but he's got more gratification and more meaning by doing that, and the money and the benefits didn't mean anything more than having a meaningful, impactful job and something that, he felt he was making a difference. Probably next week he's been talking now about being a fireman. So, this is what happens. And it's not job hopping. Everybody says, oh, they just hop from job. No, it's about finding meaningful work, advancing your career through kind of a lateral thing. This whole idea in my generation of climbing the corporate ladder, theirs is like a corporate lattice. If I can get all these experiences that build upon, give me a skill set, build upon it, I'm fine with moving laterally, kind of in a lattice versus climbing the corporate ladder, as long as the work is meaningful, impactful, and I feel like I'm doing something constructive. To Gen Y, life first, work second. To baby boomers, we basically, work is kind of it tells us who we are. We get a lot of charge out of work. Work kind of is it tells us kind of who we are. But Gen Y says, give me life first and work second. So again, when you talk about this social contract with an employer, they're not going to be your most loyal employee if the employee or the employer is not meeting their needs, is not socially responsible, is not doing things fair. They're going to move on. And they're also more about experiential learning versus on-the-job training or training functions, as, again, many of us have gone through. You need to go through this training to do here. It's more experiential. It's more life experiences. So if you kind of summarize it, some of the differences in the resulting behaviors, very diverse group of people. And again, I want to caution about putting people in boxes. This is a general conclusion. There are people in Gen X that behave like this. There's people in the baby boomer generation. It's kind of a collective general view of this generation as a whole and kind of the behaviors that happen, but very socially minded, diverse. So the world is a common workplace. It's no longer Peoria, Illinois, or Lincoln office. It's the world, and there are no boundaries. Tech-savvy, real-time connected, multitask. Again, as I said, technology is the oxygen that fuels them. Collaborative and creative. But also, I want to collaborate, but also some of that individual recognition has to be a part of that as well. Overprotected and entitled, desire constant public recognition. And again, leaders who are leading these folks just have to give them a pat on the back, tell them they're doing a job. Be very transparent in the mission and vision of your company and what you expect of them to contribute to that mission and vision. Empowered, risk takers. Again, this drive for meaningful work, career building versus, job hopping or going up the corporate ladder. Lifelong learners, really seeking life balance, and really putting life before the work experience. So the next question we ask is, how will they influence work in the workplace?